Good morning. We come today to the church in Pergamum, the letter that Jesus wrote to that particular church. As I've said before, all these churches represent different ages in church history. The first one, Ephesus, well, that represented the apostolic age when the church was fresh and young. But Jesus said to it, be careful you don't lose your first love. Then came the age of persecution, where Christians were literally martyred for their faith. But the martyrdom of these Christians acted almost like a fertilizer for the church. And the church was growing, even as people were dying in the arena. That was the church in Smyrna. We now come to the church in Pergamum, another age in the Christian church. What had happened here? Well, quite simply, the Christians had begun to compromise with the world around them. It was going to be depicted in the church history as that age when the emperor himself had become a Christian. And so it was fashionable now for people to join the Christian church. But they came into the church without any real conversion or without any real commitment. And they brought with them all their ideas from the society in which they were living. So the church in Pergamum almost represents that particular age in church history. When Jesus writes to this church, he says, you've been through quite a bit and you've suffered quite a bit, and I thank you and praise you for that. But I have something against you, and that is that you're holding to the teaching of Balaam. Now, what was this teaching, and what was the problem behind this? In the Old Testament, as the Israelites had traveled towards Israel, a great king of the Moabites saw them coming and sent from Balaam and asked him to curse them. Balaam came, took a look at them, and said, I can't curse them, because the Lord has blessed them. But, he said, I can show you how to defeat them. And Balak said, how can I defeat them? He said, send Moabite prostitutes into the camp. The young men will be attracted to them. They will start having sex with them. And as a result, their relationship with God will start to fall apart. And that's what he did. He sent the young prostitutes into the camp. And suddenly the power of Israel started to wane and become weaker and weaker. Now in Pergamum, something similar was happening. And it had to do with the guilds. People who wanted to be stonemasons, carpenters, builders, whatever else their trade was, they had to belong to a guild, just like the unions of the present day. But these guilds weren't like our present-day unions. They were, in fact, people who gathered together to worship in a particular way. And, of course, going into the pagan temples and worshipping, part of this worship was also to have sexual relationship with the priestesses which were part of the temple. This was part of the culture. Now, if a man wanted to be a builder, a stonemason, a carpenter, he had to be part of the guild. And if he was part of the guild, he would be expected to turn up in the pagan temple and offer worship, some of which was in fact to have sex in this particular way. Now, what do you do? Do you reject the guild, in which case you can't work? Or do you go with the guild and say, well, on this particular occasion, I will compromise? And it's this compromise that Jesus is attacking. He says, be careful of the compromise. And as I said, it depicted a time in church history when Caesar had been converted and people were coming into the church just because it was the fashionable thing to do. But when they came in without conversion. They came in and brought all their ideas and all their cultures with them. And there was this contamination in the life of the church. Jesus speaks to the church of Pergamum and sends the message down through the ages to all the churches. And he says, quite simply, be careful of the compromise, because in the end, it will defeat you. Amen.